The marathon, one of the world's oldest and most recognizable running events. The race runs 26.2 miles and attracts over 1 million participants every year from all across the globe to run in different races. So where did the marathon first come about? It appeared in the Olympics in the 1800s, but truly its origins are much older than that. In 5th century BC, the Persians were raging across the Middle East, and that is where the marathon first came from. Fifth century BC. The Persian Empire rages across the Middle East, enslaving more and more troops as they go. Many rise up and try to revolt against it, specifically the Ionians in modern-day Turkey. King Darius of Persia puts down the revolt swiftly, but when he discovers that Athenians supplied the Ionians with ships, he turns his sights towards Greece. The Persians landed at Marathon with about 25,000 troops of mixed infantry and cavalry. However, the Athenians managed to muster only about 10,000 troops, plus 1,000 sent from Plataea. The Athenians would need more than that if they were going to stop the Persian troops. They needed an unstoppable ally.
Nothing like this has ever been seen before. From India to Ethiopia, from the Caucasus to the Arabian desert they came, a sea of men without a shore, and against it stood the
Remember this day, man.
Even back then, the Spartans were world-renowned for their ruthlessness and efficiency in battle. So naturally, the Athenians sent word for their help. Back in the 4th century BC, couriers were often used to deliver messages from city to city. They often ran on foot from each place, days on end. Pheidippides made the 150-mile run to Sparta in just 2 days. However, when he got there, Sparta was unable to send allies to them since they were engaged in ceremonies, and by law, they were not allowed to send troops. The Athenians would just have to make do with the meager 11,000 troops that they had. Thankfully for them, they had the high ground, an advantageous position. The Athenians also arrived just as the Persians were setting up camp on the beach. The result was a stalemate that lasted almost 8 days, with neither side willing to leave their defensive positions. On the 9th day of the stalemate, the Athenians received word from Pheidippides, an Athenian courier, that Eritrea had fallen victim to the Persians. This meant that the Persians could receive reinforcements at any minute, and the Athenians would be surrounded. It was now or never. The Greek army charged down the hill at full speed at the Persians. The Athenian leader, Pheidippides, seemed to have been crazy for attempting such a daring attack. Pheidippides, however, had a very strict battle plan. He weakened his center forces and strengthened his flanks. That way, when the two collided, the Persians pushed back the center of his forces. And as the Persian center pushed against his flanks pushed back on their flanks, surrounding the Persian center in his forces and forcing them into a hasty retreat back towards their boats on the sea. The fleeing ships, however, were not retreating back to Persia, but they were instead sailing towards Athens. Pheidippides realized that if they got there before they did, then it would mean that they could make Athens surrender without even a fight, because Athens wouldn't know that they had won at the Battle of Marathon. They had to get word to Athens as soon as possible. Pheidippides, the same courier who had just ran from Athens to Sparta and back a few days earlier, was chosen for the task. He ran the 26 miles from the Bay of Marathon all the way back to Athens to give word of victory. Pheidippides made it to Athens with plenty of time to spare, but he was exhausted from the days of travel. When he fell to his knees in the Athenian court, he managed to mutter his dying words, "Nikomen, rejoice, we won." The victory at Marathon was a major one. Not only did it convince Sparta to send the Athenians troops, but it also stopped the Persian forces from advancing farther into Europe. And who knows how far they would have gone if they hadn't been stopped at Marathon. But how much of the story was actually true? How can we discern myth from reality in a story that's over 2,000 years old? Most of Pheidippides' story is actually supported by historical records. However, the only part that seems added on is a poem by Robert Browning, a British poet. Browning seems to have invented the part of the story where Pheidippides ran from Marathon to Athens to deliver his dying message. Whether it be myth or reality, This story truly is awe-inspiring, a story of a courier running like his life depended on it, delivering a fatal message to the Athenians to warn them of the coming Persians. Maybe it's a lesson to us all, that we have to mix in a little myth with our reality to inspire others to victory.